Chapter 33. Advantage. After trudging through miles of roadless terrain, Adams and Natasha, with their senses heightened and muscles fatigued, stumbled upon an old tractor, its frame nested within the concealing shadows of a metal barn. It sat there, like an antiquated beast, awaiting its revival, a full tank of fuel still harbored within its metallic bowels. With seasoned hands and a dance of mechanical wisdom, Adams breathed life into the dormant machinery. Its awakening clatter resonated within the confined space, announcing the resumption of their journey. Natasha watched, her eyes following the rhythmic movements of Adams' hands as the tractor trundled down the forgotten pathways of the land. Their journey was marked by the continuous droning of the tractor, carving its way through the desolate landscapes of forgotten grain fields, until a peculiar silhouette etched itself against the backdrop of the decaying world. A 1949 Harley-Davidson Panhead. It stood there, a silent commemoration to the free spirit of the old world, its metallic form intertwined with the remnants of its long-deceased rider, slumped in eternal repose over the tank and handlebars. With solemn respect and silent goodbyes to the unnamed rider, they abandoned the tractor, embracing the newfound speed and efficiency of their two-wheeled companion. The journey became a piece of music of roaring engines and whirling winds as they neared the Missouri River, the skeletal structure of Jefferson City looming on the other side, a silent guardian of forgotten tales and unfulfilled destinies. The sun cast its fleeting rays over the ripples of the river, painting the ruins in hues of nostalgia and untold stories. The Harley-Davidson carried them, a symbol of resiliency through decay, its engine's growl resonating throughout the structure of the empty Missouri River Bridge. Adams and Natasha felt eternally intertwined with the soul of the Panhead as Natasha gripped her arms around his waist. She felt that had it not been for the fall of civilization that lay around, this would have been a very pleasant experience as her gaze lingered on the silent cityscape ahead. Her mind wandered as they pressed forward, the relentless rumbling growl of the Harley harmonizing with the whispers of the river, carrying them through the lingering echoes of a world in decline. The serenity that had cloaked Natasha shattered instantly, her senses jolting to high alert. The clasp of her hand around Adams's waist loosened in a flash, her other hand swiftly unsheathing the pistol nestled at her side, its metallic coolness a stark contrast to the pulsating warmth of her palm. "Get ready." Adams's voice alerted, a familiar cadence of warning that had punctuated their journey thus far. It was a phrase etched within the miles of their travels, a herald of impending confrontation with those lurking on the forsaken roads, bandits, remnants of chaos in a shattered world, ever eager to pry away possessions of others, particularly their means of transport. The engine roared beneath them, the echoes of Adam's words still lingering in the air, combining with relentless rumbling of the Panhead. Eyes sharp and bodies tense, they surged forward, their spirits intertwined with the rhythmic beats. A structure materialized before them seemingly to emerge from shadows, an entity significantly different from the crude barricades they had encountered before. This roadblock radiated a semblance of order, a structured sentinel standing guard over the remnants of the old bridge that stretched across the languid Missouri River. Its appearance spoke of organization, perhaps a semblance of authority in a land where lawlessness often reigned, a stark contrast to those haphazard constructions of road pirates they had previously encountered. These barricades were aligned with precision, the remnants of a world where structure and order once held sway. As they neared this guardian of the bridge, Adam's hand reached back, patting Natasha's thigh gently. It was one of many silent signals they had mastered over time, a wordless conversation through fingertips. Be alert, but let the tension weave out of your muscles. Both sides evaluated the other as they approached the inhabitants of the roadblock. The words, UCM checkpoint, were scrawled on a sign, a beacon among uncertainty. Relief, like a subtle melody, swirled within Adams as he ceased the bike's rumble, cutting through the strained silence with his proclamation. "I am CIA agent Adam Rayner," he declared, the words tangling in a dance of discomfort and unfamiliarity within him. A life spent draped in shadows and secrets, made the openness feel like a stray note in a symphonic piece, a dissonance that twitched in his brain every time he revealed his true identity to the scattered remnants of the world. "I need to speak with whoever is in charge here." A fleeting dance of glances passed between the UCM soldiers, and a chorus of smirks played on their lips, the revelation drawing an amalgam of amusement and disbelief. "That's a new one soldier, with his smirk of skepticism, quipped, sharing a look with his companion. "Haven't had anyone try that line." It was a ballet of incredulity, a dance of disbelief, intermingling under the scrutinizing gazes, the words CIA agent hovering like an untold melody. Adams, seethed with frustration, felt the chords of retort strike within him, but before he could release his wrath, Natasha dismounted the Harley, her voice the melody of command. "I am with the Russian FSB," she asserted, her tone harmonizing with the unspoken chords of the battle-hardened journey. "We have traveled halfway around the world, fighting in Korea and along the Pacific Rim, to bring vital information. Do you doubt this? We are comrades in this war. Do as we requested and take us to your commander. Please." Her words, like a haunting serenade, enveloped the senses of the guards. Caught in the siren song of Natasha's presence, the head guard lifted his radio and called HQ, the wireless waves carrying the sonata of their plea. A few minutes later, they were provided with an escort. "What the hell just happened?" Adams voiced his words, a staccato beat of disbelief and inquiry. "The natural power of a woman over her prey," Natasha responded, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Adams could only grin, feeling the harmonious touch of her arms wrapping around him, their beings synchronizing in readiness for the ensuing ride. The scene within the UCM HQ buzzed with a structured intensity, a stark contrast to the chaotic turmoil outside its control. Adams felt a wave of strange comfort washing over him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in quite some time. This semblance of order and structure reminded him of the days before the world had plunged into chaos. The duo was led to Colonel Cecil Chapman, a stern-looking man with eyes that had witnessed countless battles. He was the interim leader, with Angelique being away on a mission. They relayed their experiences and findings, unveiling the dire state of the world to Colonel Chapman. Their tales were rich with the horrors and battles they had witnessed, especially in Korea. They painted a grim picture of a world hanging by a thread, teetering on the brink of collapse. Unbeknownst to them, their words reverberated through the battle room, catching the attention of Ivory, who happened to enter just in time to grasp the crux of their briefing. Her eyes narrowed, absorbing every word, every detail of the situation outlined by Adams and Natasha. The revelation about the compromised equipment due to hidden programs implanted within chips by China was particularly alarming. The battle room was silent, save for the unsettling words of Adams and Natasha. This clandestine infiltration was an unanticipated blow, shaking the foundations of their strategic capabilities. The atmosphere grew tense as the ramifications of this disclosure seeped into the minds of all present. The room was filled with a mix of anger, realization, and a burgeoning resolve to combat this unseen enemy lurking within their ranks. Colonel Chapman's eyes, steely and determined, flicked between Adams, Natasha, and Ivory, contemplating the next course of action. The world was on fire, and they were in the eye of the storm, trying to douse the flames before it consumed them all. Natasha's voice carried through the charged atmosphere of the battle room, a harbinger of the terrible truths they have uncovered. She describes the specialized device they carry, capable of containing the insidious program and allowing them to operate the infected machinery. The room's atmosphere thickened as Adams added the tragic fate of the United States Navy to the grim narrative. He depicted the horror that unfolded on the vast, indifferent ocean. The sea had become a silent spectator to the doom of powerful vessels and their crews, a consequence of their positions being betrayed by the infected chips. These mighty protectors of the seas, once symbols of strength, became floating coffins, their ability to retaliate stripped away. Adams's voice broke the charged silence, describing how some of the ships had wandered aimlessly, a silent, drifting testament to the technological treachery, their crews succumbing slowly, entombed within the steel giants, powerless and forsaken. The details landed like a punch in the guts of every person in the room. Colonel Chapman's gaze hardened, a tempest brewing behind his eyes, reflecting the seething tumult within the room. The silence following the disclosures was deafening, the truth reverberating in their hearts and minds. It was a silence laden with whispered promises to the lost souls drifting eternally on the boundless seas. Ivory's gaze met that of Colonel Chapman, Adams, and Natasha, a silent communion of warriors forged in the crucible of their time. A hush settled over the room, a lingering tension following Ivory's inquiry. "Wow, that is horrific. Any information on how this all started?" she asked. Her words hung heavily in the charged atmosphere. Adams's entire being seemed to fold inward, a subtle aura of sorrow cloaking his frame as he hung his head, the weight of untold truths etched into his visage. "Yes." His voice was a whisper, laden with regret, reminiscence infiltrating his being. A pause, seemingly endless, permeated the room as he collected the shards of his shattered memories. The web of his confession wove itself painfully as he spoke of his mission to assassinate Kim Jong-un in the dark corners of North Korea. The mission's particulars unfold like shadows dancing with flames of betrayal. Months of meticulous planning, a dance with deception, where trust was bartered with EMP devices meant to orbit the cosmos. The entire facade was crafted with precision, a veil to shroud his end at the hands of his kin, leaving his sister as supreme ruler. However, the daggers of reality pierced through. The inert EMP devices were teeming with a life of their own. Colonel Chapman's face twisted into a canvas of anger and disbelief, absorbing the bitter truth. A command, sharp and swift, echoed through the room. "Arrest him!" The decree, a clarion call in the silent battlefield of revelations, led to an instantaneous upheaval. Natasha, her loyalty an unbroken chain, snapped into action, the cold steel of her pistol seeking the colonel's temple. The room transformed into a battleground of restrained chaos, with devilish music of charging weapons and heightened reflexes. Every pair of eyes held a different storm, the entire room holding its breath, the myriad of destinies intertwined hanging in the delicate balance between a trigger's pull and a heartbeat's pause. The ticking seconds were a whispered sonnet of suspense, a silent hymn sung by the guardians of clandestine truth. The room quivered with restrained ferocity, every gaze sharp, every muscle tight, a deadly dance of trust and treachery whirling within. Then Ivory's voice, a sharp counterpoint among the tension, sounded, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." She thrust her hands in the air, a fluid dance of motion intended to douse the erupting flames. "What are you all doing?" Her words were shadows flitting across the faces of the assembly, but Chapman's countenance remained a steadfast mask of authority. "This man is under arrest for treason," he declared, his voice an unwavering beacon of command. Adams, with a whirlwind of survival instinct engaging, had incapacitated a soldier nearby, his weapon a new extension of his will, positioned himself, his stance a living fortress, the barrel of his stolen rifle a silent sentinel against the dual threat before him. "I didn't fight my way out of China into the mouth of hell that is South Korea just to be judged by you," he proclaimed, his words a fiery cascade of unbroken spirit. "We bring proof that the real perpetrator of all this, believe it or not, is a Nazi named Victor Roche." The air was a cascade of ensuing questions, the invisible links of complicity snaking through the assembly, wrapping around every soul, every heartbeat pulsating with uncertainty. Eyes flit towards one another. Ivory's words attracted everyone's attention. The multi-billionaire? Her voice sent ripples through the room. "I did a story on him many years ago, discussing his connections to the Third Reich, and I was labeled a conspiracy nut. They said it wasn't true, despite there being interview videos of him relishing his days as a child, working with the SS. Fueled with emotions, disbelief painted their faces as the revelations of Ivory's words created contemplation in their minds. Could a relic of such historical bygone hatred be the mastermind of the catastrophic reality they were enveloped in? Natasha's response pierced through the veiled curtain of uncertainties. "Da," she asserted, her voice filled with conviction. "According to my father's records, he amassed his wealth from the hidden Nazi plunder of Polish Jews. We have tracked him to a location in the States." Her eyes swept over the assembly with the dangling swords of Damocles pointed at each other, weaving a deadly web around them. "Now can we cease this ludicrous pointing of weapons at each other before this room fills with dead?" Her words, a stirring plea, served as a clarion call in the tempest of animosities. The seconds felt like drawn-out moments, the tension strung tight, poised to snap. "Colonel," Ivory's tone imbued with a stern resonance. A web of silent conjectures enshrouded the room as Colonel Chapman's face was a facade of contemplation, the undercurrents of his thoughts veiled behind his stoic visage. Finally, his voice, a steely command intertwined with reluctance, reverberated through the space. "Put him down." The assembly, in a state of coiled readiness, seemed to exhale collectively, the weapons slowly lowering in reluctant obedience. Chapman's gaze met those present as he continued. "You might think we wouldn't believe such a tale, but it just so happens we have our own Nazi prisoner." The shadows of the past intertwining with the complexities of the present, unmasking the interconnected fabric of their destinies. "He was dispatched to assassinate Commander Karnik, and would have succeeded had it not been for Mrs. Ivory here." His gaze flickered towards Ivory Hecker, acknowledgement of respect woven into his expression. "We need to question this man immediately," Natasha asserted. The group, now linked by intertwined destinies, moved in a silence towards the prisoner's cell on the lower levels. Ivory recounted the story of the man's capture as they walked, the silence absorbing the unfolding tale, the echoes of footsteps interweaving with the unveiling narration. "He announced Victor's revenge right before he fired his weapon." Ivory's words reflected the haunting actions. Footsteps harmonized with the rhythm of tense breaths as they approached the guarded cell, only to find a sight that sent a jolt of shock through their nerves. The guard, his throat a canvas of macabre artwork, was slumped over his station, his last breath a whisper of suffocating silence. The group's pulse quickened as they rushed towards the cell, where they found their Nazi prisoner, his lifeless form a shadow within the shadows, a Nazi honor dagger embedded in his chest, a final concealment of damning truths. Adams's fury erupted like a tempest, his voice a thunderous echo in the shadows of concealed secrets. "We've lost vital information. He could have provided us with insights to unravel this entire nightmare." Ivory's voice cut through Adams's tempest. "We have more pressing issues to address," she proclaimed. She began to unravel the story of the clandestine underground highway system they had discovered. Victor must have been orchestrating all of this in cahoots with the Chinese. But then, Ivory's words wove a new layer in the dance of shadows and echoes. "We have established contact with President Jackson," she divulged. Everything shifted as Adams's frustration subdued by the new revelations.